The 1972 eruption gave an age of 350,000 years. The new lava dome building inside Mount St. Helens started building in 1982. They took samples of it, of the lava. They got numbers when they dated it, between 350,000 and 2.8 million. It's just formed in the last 25 years, folks. So same thing with potassium argon. When you date a sample of known age, it doesn't work. If you date a sample of unknown age, they assume it works. That's not science. And again, wild dates are frequently obtained. So, question. Have fresh dinosaur bones been found? Interesting question. In Alaska, there's a book you can get called The Great Alaskan Dinosaur Adventure, where they talk about dinosaur bones being found, not even fossilized. The journal of Science, December '93, reported amazing preservation of the bones of a young duck-billed dinosaur found in Montana. Under a microscope, the fine structure of the bones was seen to have been preserved to such an extent that cell characteristics can be compared with cells of the chicken bone. In northwestern Alaska, 1961, a geologist found a bed of dinosaur bones in unfossilized condition. A young Canadian Eskimo was working with scientists in Newfoundland's Memorial University in 1987 on Violet Island. He found part of a lower jaw of a duck-billed dinosaur. It too was in fresh condition. So yes, unfossilized dinosaurs have been found. A dinosaur was found here recently that said it had the heart inside, and it was a 4-chambered heart. Well, I don't think they're really positive it had a 4-chambered heart yet, but even if it did, it doesn't prove anything. Most reptiles have a 3-chambered heart. Birds have 4. So some have argued that dinosaurs turned to birds, which is a ridiculous idea. We covered that on video number 4. But they're using this as evidence that, this proves dinosaurs turned to birds. It is interesting. Very rarely do soft tissues, like hearts and lungs, fossilize, but occasionally they do, which to me is indication there was a flood. Had to be buried quickly, or it would have rotted in just a short time. Okay, next question. If there really was a flood, where'd all the human bones go? Fair question. Marvin Lubenow, one of the world's experts on fossils of humans, says about 4,000 human fossils have been found, most of them very fragmentary, sometimes only a small piece, but he says about 4,000. Here's my solution to this question. When God first made the world, about 6,000 years ago, there were 2 people, but the earth was full of animals and full of plants. When the flood came, 4,400 years later, the earth is still full of animals and still full of plants, but still not full of people. So when the flood came, there weren't as many people to be killed as there were animals, so they would be less likely to be found. Secondly, people lived longer back in those days and probably grew much larger. The purpose of the flood was to destroy mankind. And people are smarter than animals. Well, some people are smarter than some animals. And they would tend to avoid drowning till the last minute. So they wouldn't be fossilized because they would end up on top and they rot. They don't end up buried where they can be preserved. The Bible says there were giants in the earth in those days. If people before the flood were larger, much larger than today, then because of the evolutionary preconceived idea that some people have, they wouldn't recognize these as human bones because they're simply too big. You find a fragment of a huge bone, they would say, well, it must be, a giant sloth or a dinosaur or something else. And it could be. But I think there's a prejudice to thinking that man used to be smaller and now we're bigger. Therefore, if you find small human bones, that's fine. But if you find big human bones, they're not human. So basically, number 1, there were less people to be killed. Number 2, people would tend to not rot because they end up on top instead of buried because they're smarter. Number 3, they might not be recognized as human. And the purpose of the flood was to destroy man. Okay? Next question. Where did Noah get pitch? Isn't it from post-flood oil? On my debate number 7, I debated against a former preacher turned atheist. One of his arguments was, the Bible says Noah put pitch on the ark and pitch is made from oil. Therefore, oil formed during the flood, and so the creationists have a problem because this can't be true. Well, now the Bible says in Genesis chapter 6, God told Noah to pitch it within and without with pitch. In Exodus chapter 2, the little ark that Moses was hid in was daubed with slime and pitch, and she put the child therein. In Isaiah chapter 34, It says, the streams thereof shall be turned into pitch, and the dust into brimstone, and the land shall become burning pitch. It shall not be quenched day nor night. The smoke thereof shall go up forever. So pitch apparently produces smoke when it burns. If you get an old dictionary, you'll find before they even discovered oil or started using commercial drilling for oil in the early 1800s, 1820s and 30s, like Pennsylvania oil wells, one of the first ones that they were using. For one thing, nobody had cars back then, so oil was not in big demand. The only use for oil was in lamps to burn, and so they were using whale oil for that generally. But in 1928, the dictionary would say, pitch is a thick, tenacious substance, the juice of a species of pine or fir. So you take pine or fir trees, you get the juice, you distill it down, and you make pitch. There were entire industries in the 1700s and 1800s producing pitch from trees to use for ships to waterproof them. So it's not made from oil. First mistake. When kept long in fusion with vinegar, it becomes dry and brown and forms some other stuff. It's the resin of pine or turpentine. It's used in caulking ships and paying the sides and bottom. Webster's 1828 dictionary. So the argument that they couldn't have pitch to build the ark because pitch is made from oil is a flawed argument. So next question. Was ancient man primitive? I don't think so. There's a great book on this available from our ministry called The Puzzle of Ancient Man. If you want to read about some amazing things found indicating ancient man was incredibly intelligent. This little airplane was found in a South American grave, estimated to be about 1,000 years old. The Smithsonian has it labeled as a stylized insect. Does that look like an insect, anybody out here? Looks like an airplane to me. Oftentimes, we get the false idea that ancient man was dumb and modern man is smart, which is all part of the evolution theory. Quite the opposite is true. Ancient man was incredibly intelligent. This iron pot was found inside a lump of coal. They have stones in Peru that weigh 20,000 tons. The biggest crane on earth today can lift 3,000 tons.